AI. Divorced, paid big, and happily married. The titans who steer the global tech order, and the chairmen who run Korea's conglomerates, they share a great many risks. Today, we're looking at one of the more expensive ones: divorce. Settlements running into the tens of trillions of won. Share fights that decide who controls a company. And a rare few who somehow stay happily married through all of it. Let's work through the maths. The verdict: Korea couldn't stop watching. We'll begin with the case that's held all of Korea's attention this summer. In July 2026, the retrial of SKGroup chairman Chae Tae-won's divorce landed on a number: 944 billion won. It is the largest publicly disclosed division of assets in the history of a Korean conglomerate family. Getting there was not a straight line. An earlier appeals court had set the figure at roughly 1.38 trillion won, but the Supreme Court sent it back over how a slush fund claim was counted, and the number came down. Two things decided it. First, across a 30-year marriage, the court recognized Ro So-young's contribution at 1/3. And second, the part that actually moved the needle, Chae's SK shares were treated as marital property. The court let him keep the shares themselves and ordered him to pay her portion in cash, which is a polite way of saying the marriage is over, but the cap table stays intact. And the record may not stand for long. Waiting in the wings is Kwon Hyuk-bin, founder of Smilegate. An appraisal put his assets as high as 8 trillion won. His spouse, who held a 30% stake in the early days, is asking for half. The first ruling comes on the 9th of September. If the court agrees with her, the split could reach 4 trillion won. Enough to make Chairman Chae's record look almost modest. For a sense of how these things used to go, back in 2004, NCSoft's Kim Taek-jin handed over a 1.76% stake, worth around 30 billion won at the time. Back then, that was the headline number. Times change. The mega-billion-dollar separations. The Americans, of course, have their own version, usually with more zeros. Jeff Bezos handed Mackenzie Scott a quarter of the couple's Amazon stock, about 4% of the whole company. At the time, that was roughly $38 billion, around 54.8 trillion won. It stands as one of the largest settlements ever recorded, and it made Scott one of the wealthiest women in the world overnight. Bezos kept the voting rights. Priorities. Bill Gates and Melinda French Gates parted ways in 2021. The full terms stayed private. But tax filings later revealed a transfer of about $7.88 billion, over 11.3 trillion won, to Melinda's foundation. Add the property and the assets nobody disclosed, and the real figure sits comfortably higher. Which brings us to Elon Musk. Here's the twist for anyone who assumed he'd simply never married. He's married 3 times. 8 years with his first wife, Justine Wilson, and then with the actress Tallulah Riley. A marriage, a divorce, a remarriage, and a second divorce. When you enjoy something, why do it only once? The 2 Riley settlements came to more than $20 million combined, but the settlements were never really the point. Through ironclad marital agreements, Musk kept his controlling stakes in Tesla and SpaceX firmly walled off. Just look at his first divorce. Justine actually took him to court to invalidate their postnuptial agreement, aiming for a piece of his growing companies. She lost. She walked away with a house, alimony, and child support, but absolutely zero equity in his empire. When it comes to protecting the cap table, Musk's engineering is flawless. Kept the shares, and the ones who didn't. Not everyone pays out. Some hold the line on the one thing that matters: the shares. In Lee Bu-jin's divorce, the president of Hotel Sheila, her former husband asked for 1.2 trillion won, half of an estate valued around 2.5 trillion. The court excluded the Samsung shares and awarded 141 billion. Set against the ask, that was functionally a loss. Cho Hyun-ah, formerly of Korean Air, kept her Hanjin shares intact by settling for 1.33 billion won. Others simply made it disappear, quietly and fast. Samsung chairman Lee Jae-yong wrapped up his divorce in a single week. Shinsegae chairman Chung Yong-jin settled his in about 2 hours. Alimony and custody agreed. The division of assets sealed away. The courtroom drama skipped entirely. And then, the cautionary tale. Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle. 4 marriages, 4 divorces. His second wife, as part of her settlement, gave up her claim to Oracle stock and reportedly sold her shares back for $500 just before the company took off. Had she held on, she'd likely have been one of the richest people alive. $500. Round numbers can be cruel. The outliers and the happily married. Beyond tech and the conglomerates, the pop legend Paul McCartney paid his own price. A court ordered him to pay Heather Mills $48.6 million, roughly 70 billion won, at the end of their divorce. But not everyone ends up in court. A few manage extraordinary wealth and a happy marriage at the same time. Start with Mark Zuckerberg, married to Priscilla Chan. The two met at Harvard in 2003, since 2012. His way of showing affection is, let's say, distinctive. In 2024, he installed a 7-foot turquoise statue of his wife in the garden and announced he was bringing back the Roman tradition of making sculptures of your wife. The public might have found it a bit eccentric, but the coda to that grand gesture is pure nerd romance. Priscilla leaned right into it. She posted a photo on Instagram, casually sipping out of a mug next to the giant sculpture, with the caption, "The more of me, the better." Billionaire eccentricities. Results? Actually positive. Among the younger founders, Snap's Evan Spiegel married the supermodel Miranda Kerr and has kept a quiet, settled family life. And the best story goes to Alexis Ohanian, co-founder of Reddit, who married the tennis great Serena Williams in 2017. Here's the detail people miss. Ohanian wasn't some lifelong tennis fan chasing his idol. He'd barely watched a match before they met. A textbook nerd founder. Today, he's among the loudest investors and advocates for women's sport. As Serena put it, "He doesn't dim my light. He puts me in the light." Turns out you don't need to know the sport to marry the greatest ever to play it. So, which is harder for the people at the very top of the wealth curve? The perfect union or the peaceful exit? One of them paid out tens of trillions and still kept his voting shares. One let a fortune go for $500. And one put a statue of his wife on the lawn. Enormous capital, tangled up with human feeling. It's the kind of equation even the most advanced AI model would probably decline to solve.